Hi, I'm Richard from the McLennan Collective. I'm here with Peter Bushby from Peter Bushby Real Estate. G'day, Pete. How you going?
Good, thanks, Richard. Nice to be with you again.
Yeah, same. Pete, you know, we've covered some topics from marketing your own home to the impact of the budget. What's this week's topic?
This week I thought we'd have a look at some fundamentals again. The cost associated with buying a property, fairly pertinent for everybody who buys a property, and probably a good idea just to sort of inform people as to what's involved. So,
Sounds great.
yeah, so look, I think there are a number of costs associated with buying a property, and whilst I think most people understand that there are costs, often they're very, very surprised at the quantum of the cost when it's all put together. And so I thought I'd just run through the various areas where you will spend money if you buy a property before you get it into your name. So,
yeah, okay. And the biggest one, obviously, and the first one up is stamp duty.
Absolutely, that's certainly the biggest, and it's unavoidable as a cost. It's a state government charge. It's levied on all property purchases. The scale's quite complex. It's not just a percentage. So, look, I'd refer anybody who is interested in specific charges to the State Revenue Office website, and you'll get all the information there.
Yes.
Another way of doing it, which I've found very, very useful and I use regularly, is an app for my phone, for my iPhone, but I think it's also available on Android. It's called Agent Calculator. And along with stamp duty information and a lot of other things, you can actually go in and assess what various price levels are, not only in Tasmania but all around the country. So that's just something
really useful.
A very useful tool. So recommend that. Look, having said that, I've made a few examples of what you pay at different price points. Here in Tasmania, 150,000 will attract a payment of $3,925. If you spend $250, you pay the state government $5,550. At $350, that goes to $11,550. At $500,000, you're paying $17,550. And if you're lucky enough to spend $1 million, buy $1 million property, you'll very generously pay the state government $37,550.
Yeah, that's incredible.
3.755% at that level. So it should be noted too that stamp duty varies around the country, and that Tasmanian stamp duty, in my view, sort of rates in the higher end of what's charged around the country. So the state government's doing very nicely at the moment. I believe, in actual fact, that there's potentially a windfall of about $100 million from stamp duty because of the improved property market at the moment. So it's sad that the state government currently offers no relief whatsoever for first home buyers, something I keep hammering on about.
Definitely there doesn't seem to be any conversation at all in the current political climate.
There's been the focus on the first home owners building boost, and we'll have a talk about that next week. I'll refer to that a bit later. Some of the other state and territories do offer first home buyer relief in various forms around the country, so we'd, as an industry, love to see the government step up on this area.
And legal fees?
Legal fees, yeah, that's an expense that most people will incur in transfer. Very few people are capable of doing a transfer themselves. And broadly, it's made up of two expense areas. The first is the solicitor's professional fees, while the rest is associated charges that include search fees for titles, council information and registration and lodgement fees.
Yeah, okay.
Plus, there's usually some out-of-pocket expenses as well that go with the bill. Legal fees can vary between the various firms. It's quite a competitive environment out there. I checked yesterday with a good solicitor friend of mine who I often recommend, and he said a typical charge that his firm would levy depends a little bit on the value of the property, but it would be broadly between $600 and $900 for the professional fees, and he said to allow around the $700 mark for the searches and extras as a guide.
That's on top of the $600 to $900?
Yes, yeah. It is. And then if you're getting a mortgage, there'd be some mortgage registration costs and so on above that,
right,
but that will depend on what size mortgage, all that sort of thing. So, and then one area that people really sort of don't take into account when they're buying, but it's usually dealt with at the time through the solicitors, is the adjustments for council and water rates. And for example, they're adjusted as at the date of settlement, so the time within the financial year that you own the property. And if you happen to buy very early in the financial year, you could be up for pretty much reimbursement or payment for the whole financial year costs. And Tas Water and council rates can easily add up to $3,000 to $3,500, something like that, depending on the property, even more if it's a dearer property. And so you may well have to sort of cough up for that at the time of settlement as well. So
that's a really good point. They seem to be other hidden ones that you don't necessarily consider.
You pay it while you own the property, but there's just an adjustment that needs to be dealt with at that time. Land tax is another one that if you're not buying as principal place of residence, you could well end up, you certainly will end up having to pay that at that same time as well.
Okay, and building inspections?
Yeah, look, that's obviously an optional area, but a lot of people do get them, particularly if the house is older or there's some fear that there may be some issues, and certainly recommend that if that's the case, it's done. I recommend a particular service provider, and I just use his charging as an example. He charges $330 plus, including GST, plus $10 per square over that. For properties within a 50-kilometre radius, and if it's outside that, there's an additional charge depending on where it is.
Yes, understandable.
Another area that people need to be mindful of, it's part of the purchase price, but you need to usually come up with a deposit. Historically it's been 10%, but that's not always available, and it's often part of the negotiation as far as what is available, and usually comes back to the capacity of the purchaser having available funds and how much they can provide at that point in time. But
yes,
it's a cost that needs to be mindful and dealt with at that stage.
Removalists.
Yeah, removalists. Not everybody's lucky enough to have family or a ute or whatever, or truck access that they can move themselves. So there's usually a cost for people moving, and some people forget about that. Naturally, it would depend a lot on how much stuff you've got and where you're moving it to and from and so on. But I've got a guy that I've used locally myself, and I recommend him. And if anybody does need a removalist, just a matter of giving me a call. I'm more than happy to provide his details.
Great. And obviously some of the bare necessities like Telstra and NBN.
Yeah, look, I think people forget that NBN and Telstra need to be connected. Sometimes, depending on if it's there or what's needed to create the service, that there may be a charge. So, and you certainly need to allow time for that connection of service. And similarly with Aurora, you need to allow time for those connections. So, look, in summary, I'll just pick a 15 square $350,000 purchase as an example, and you're getting a building inspection. The total cost that you really need to be allowing as additional to your actual purchase price would, in my view, be somewhere in the $13,500 to $14,000 range to complete your purchase. So you need to be very mindful of it. I think, to sum it up, it's an expensive process buying a property, but it's usually a very worthwhile investment over time, and certainly I would suggest against renting long term. It's a worthwhile thing to do.
Fantastic. Well, that's really great, and I just want to remind those who are watching this property talk online that the State Revenue Office website link we'll put up, as well as the agent calculator link, just so people can access that.
Yeah, that's a free app too, by the way, Richard.
Yeah, great. Awesome. And any open homes this week?
Yeah, doing two this Saturday. 72 Louisa Street out at Bracknell. I'm going to be out there 10 to 10:30. It's $285,000 for a very comfortable 3-bedroom house on a nice big block of land, and if you want a little bit of country in a really convenient, accessible spot, it's worth looking at.
10 to 10:30.
10 to 10:30 there, and same for the one that Peter Darrow's doing out at 166 King Street at Westbury. That's a big character brick home, and that's on a very large block of land as well. And again, 10 to 10:30. The price on that one's $428,000.
Great, and you've been busy, obviously. You need more listings?
Yeah, look, I think the whole industry's been quite busy. We've enjoyed some good success of late, and as a result, a bit light on for good listings. So if anybody would like an appraisal, we're more than happy to offer that service, and so just giving us a call.
Excellent. And we've had a few good topics over the 8 episodes that we've been doing Property Talk. What's next week's episode going to be?
Yeah, I did have something else in mind, but I think given the extension of the First Home Builders Boost, and I referred to it earlier in the comments, the industry is questioning the real effectiveness of it. The numbers are showing that there's been a dramatic decline in take-up, and it's, I think, because of the fact that a lot of demand is being brought forward.
Yes.
But the numbers showed, when it was introduced, 2,755 in 13-14. Last year it dropped down to 665 approvals. And this year to date, it's only sitting around the 380 mark. So, is it working? I think it's only working up to a point, and we'd like, as an industry, to see more relevance to those who need it most. So we'll have a bigger talk about, and greater talk about that topic next week, 12 o'clock next Thursday.
Fantastic. Well, once again, thank you very much, Pete.
Thank you again. Great to be with you.